On December 22, 2011, Randy Pierce and his service dog Quinn began their quest to hike all 48 of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers in a single winter season.
I'm Randy Pierce. I'm a totally blind hiker. If I told you the numbers of people in New Hampshire that are blind, you'd be stunned. It's an invisible malady, because when people go blind, all too often, they hide. I had confidence that I would give my all, but I had no confidence that that was enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Backpacking Podcast. Jeremiah, we're back, buddy.
Hey, we had a week off, man. I'm refreshed.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the Backpacking Podcast. My good friend Jerome Stringer, wearing the infamous Chick-fil-A t-shirt currently. Jeremiah, is it true that you camped out at a Chick-fil-A overnight in 40-degree weather so that you could get a year of free Chick-fil-A?
The rumors are true. The best part, free Chick-fil-A for a year, even though it expired February of 2021. The worst part, laid in the cold, wet inside my tent and watched my team, UK, lose to South Carolina.
You guys got used to that a lot this year, didn't you?
Hey, man. Word on the street is Ohio State didn't do too hot.
We made it to the tournament, though, didn't we?
Made it to the tournament, but I don't think you made it through. You didn't make it through the first round.
We're not supposed to. We're not actually supposed to be that good, so that works out well for us. But anyways, so Jeremiah, tonight, we have, like, primo guests on tonight. Like,
that was a great video, man.
I know. And that's just the touch of the story that we're going to hear about tonight. Listen to this. We already got somebody up here doing Roll Tide. Seriously, please.
Oh, come on.
Seriously, bro, you can't drop base weight by trimming your beard. Come on, yeah. Jeremiah.
I trimmed my beard. Yes, that is also true.
Anyways, so I just want to say that tonight we've got a really cool couple guests with us. One who's been on the show before, a good friend of the show, Justin Sylvester, and we've also got Randy Pierce on here. And the two of them work together to hike all of the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire.
Yeah, extreme, man. I mean, we're going to
48 summits, man.
Yes, hopefully we'll dive super deep into that tonight and hear the whole story and how it went and the inspiration behind it. But that is insane. How many hundreds of miles is 300 miles and over 80,000 feet?
88,000 feet, dude. That's insane. Look at this. All Things Outdoors, I think, sums it up best. I thought Justin was the baddest man in Hampshire. Then I saw 4 more feet with Randy. And we found out who the real bad man of New Hampshire is. That's what happened. So with that said, let's welcome in our guests, Mr. Randy Pierce and Justin Sylvester. How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
Oh, man. Super stoked.
Going great. Thanks for letting me join the three of you veterans here.
Oh, we're just here for a good time, man.
Last I checked, you did that in 2012, right?
Yeah, 2011 into 12, the one winter, right? So that's what made it the more challenging part is we just had the 3 months to get it done.
Wow.
That's crazy. So let's start with Justin. How did you and Randy meet or hook up? Like, whose idea was this?
We actually were introduced through a mutual hiker friend at the time.
Uh-huh.
I had done a single season a few years before and met this person that introduced us, and then he ended up getting involved with Randy, and he introduced the two of us.
Wow. And then Randy,
that's awesome.
You just approached Justin. You're like, "Hey, man, I got this idea." Or how did that go down?
So our first peak together was Mount Garfield. It was January 2nd, and the real trick to it is I just blew a microspike on the trail, left it down, and I'm hiking without the microspike, and I'm slipping all over and hadn't figured out what was going on. And who was the young guy that had to go back and fetch it? Well, by the time he caught back up, he was like, "No, no, I'll go back," because he's got so much energy. And my guide dog's a Labrador Retriever, and apparently Justin has a little bit of Retriever in him too. But by the time he caught back up, he's like, "Hey, you know what? I think I could do a little bit of that guiding." And before we knew it, we were best friends because when you work together like that, I mean, it's just you're gonna bond. You're gonna build a friendship. You're gonna build a teamwork.
Well, I know talking to Justin, he is a huge fan of yours. And after hearing you call him young man, I'm sure he's going to be a fan of yours for a long time. So
We've got a pretty good running joke going on about that.
That's wild. So, Randy, for the people that are just joining us that may have missed this, so at age 22, I believe, you had some medical issues and is neurological and lost 100% of your vision, right?
So 21 into 22, I spent my birthday losing my sight. But you're absolutely right. And at first, that first time, in the first 2 weeks, I lost all of the sight in my right eye and half of the sight in my left eye in those 2 weeks. And then it stopped. And then I was just legally blind. And I had a few years like that because it was quick and stopped. And then it was 11 years later before I went totally blind. I had 7 more episodes and I just closed in a little more. So I've been totally blind for now 20 plus years.
Wow. And I'm sure that was very scary at first, but it seems like, I mean, you've tuned into something completely different, like was in the video. A lot of people would let that get in the way, but I mean, you're running marathons and doing tough mudders and hiking peaks and, backpack. It's insane. So what inspired you to go from just a normal, regular, I guess, teenager, young adult, and then you lose your sight, and then you're like, this isn't going to hold me back? How did that happen?
I think for any of us, when you hit challenge, adversity, whatever format it arrives, we're all going to face it. You always have 2 choices. You can quit, you can let it beat you, or you can grow. You can learn, you can become a little bit more, and that's when you overcome that. And the truth is, adversity is really the catalyst for becoming something a little bit better if you don't quit. And obviously, that was pretty tough adversity. And I had that choice. And at first, I responded badly, right? I was helpless and hopeless. And I did feel like I won't do anything fun or important. But, the good news is, even if you quit at first, you can always change your decision. You can always make a better decision, right? Even failure is temporary as long as you choose resiliency. And, the good news is all the good things began as soon as I changed my mindset. And so why wouldn't I just continue that through every stage, through every other challenge? And all those rewards keep coming. Now I embrace positive opportunity. I say, give me the adversity that I want, whether it's a mountain, right? That's positive adversity, that goal, or whatever it is, because I know the experience is going to make me grow and I'm going to become something a little bit better if I choose the right response.
So Randy, you go around, you are a motivational speaker now. Now, were you doing this before the climb, or is this a result of that?
So I was doing it a little bit before the climbing, and obviously you take some things and it's going to give you some credibility, right? When people want you to speak, they want to think that, what do you have? Are you famous? Are you successful? Or are you a really good speaker? And if you don't have all 3 of those to some extent, you're probably not gonna go very far. So a little bit of each of those is what I was able to pull together to make it work.
Wow. So Justin, you all hook up and you actually decide that you're gonna complete this challenge of bagging these peaks, these 4,000 footers, and some well above 4,000 feet. What can you take us through some of the logistics and just what did that look like whenever you all went out on trail? Were you taking point? Were you, I think you mentioned before something about using the trekking pole to communicate. So Justin, what did that look like?
It looked like figure it out as it presented itself. Honestly.
That's great.
Randy had his dog, Quinn, the mighty Quinn. But that pair right there is an extremely capable pair. So it made everybody that was involved with guiding much easier because, I mean, as you can tell, Randy is not your average blind person, right? He just goes out and he does stuff. And so it was just a matter of figuring out what the problems were and figuring them out together. We had quite a few different methods of how we did that, and those methods changed as the terrain changed or as time schedules changed and all that stuff. But the guiding was only part of like the logistics that you talk about, because when you're hiking with a blind person, you can't just say, hey man, be at the trail at 6, I'll see you there. I mean, there's got to be someone else involved. He needs a driver. Lots of times we were scrambling to figure out hotels and how we could stay up there, or where we were going to sleep and how we were going to eat and all that stuff. So it was a lot more involved than just hiking, because that whole winter was just a mission. It wasn't just broken down into a bunch of different hikes. I mean, because once the hike was over, we had to go find a place to stay a lot of times and eat. We were making our own meals and staying in these cheap hotels and huddling around microwaved food that we had pre-made and doing everything we could to make this trip happen. So it was a lot of logistics involved. Absolutely.
That's amazing. I should have done this at the beginning and I didn't, but I want everybody to understand, Randy, just how incredible you are, because I found this earlier today and I just want to put this out there. So, the honors, the accomplishments that you've had up to this point, you've earned your 2nd degree karate black belt. You have historic hiking accomplishments around the world, from New Hampshire's White Mountains to the Andes in Peru to the summit of Kilimanjaro in Africa. You've won 2 national marathon championships. You've run an ever-growing number of marathons in several states and several ultra marathons. You've completed several Tough Mudders. You were inducted as a fan into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. You co-authored your first book in 2018 with your wife, Tracy. You deliver hundreds of live motivational presentations to a total of over 96,000 school students, and your 2020 Vision Quest now has donated over $500,000 to Vision Service charities. Man, do you sleep?
Well, as soon as I don't see the light anymore, that's when I'll take a sleep. So, no, the truth is, I think we all can do so many great things. We talk about reaching our peak potential, right? And I take time to celebrate and enjoy life as hard as I work as well, right? And Justin will tell you that, right? I love life. And that's one of the things he didn't talk about that was part of our system is, yeah, he does some guide work when we work that out. My guide dogs do it, but he also helps me share the experience, right? I come up across the summit. What do people hike for often? The views. Well, I don't know what those views are, right? But I do when my friends break them down for me. And we have all sorts of ways we do that. Now, I'm not just the selfish guy who takes that. I try to give that as well. There's plenty of times I'd be like, Justin, stop, close your eyes. Tell me what you notice, because my ears, my nose, and my face is always feeling what's around me. And because you have sight, you're often distracted by that, and you miss out on a lot of things too, right? So I just understand that it's the whole experience of life. I'm living it deeply with my friends and for my friends at times too.
I was gonna say, like, just from everything I've seen about you, I did a lot of research. I basically internet stalked you for the past few days. But I got online, just looked up everything I could just to kind of learn more about you as a person. And honestly, man, the one thing I've noticed is that you really care about people you care about. It's definitely. I'm seeing Justin smile the whole time I'm saying this, because this must be true. And so I can only imagine, even though you can't see those sights, when you hear the excitement in other people's voices when they see it, I have a feeling that brings you joy. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're spot on. And people in the moment, when people are feeling it and experiencing it themselves, it's there in their voice. And so that's why being in the moment is so vital, right? And you can get that from a good YouTube video channel for sure. But you get it even more by experiencing it and being there in the moment, for sure. And you said I care about people I care about, and that's true. But I hope I care about people, because there's something in everybody worth caring about. You just got to find a way to draw it out.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So you all decided to take on this challenge, and you had a 3-month window. And why exactly? Can you tell us why exactly you all picked that 3-month window? And what was that all about?
Sure. Justin, you want to take it, or do you want me to grab it?
I'll let you grab that, because you can describe it much, much better.
So, first off, when I started, it was 2010, and I founded my charity 2020 Vision Quest. I was going to take 10 leisurely years to hike all 48 of those peaks. And I had started out, and this guy came to me and said, I see what you're doing, and I think you're going to succeed, but I think you could do something very few people do, which is to do it in the winter. And to do it specifically in one winter, because footing is my biggest challenge. And footing will be easier. I'll have new challenges, but snow fills in all those crevices, twisty, rocky roots, and gives me smoothness. So he said, if you try to do that, part of what you're trying to do is raise awareness. That will get people's attention, because nobody's climbed them at all, and certainly nobody's climbed them blind in the winter, or nobody's climbed them blind in one winter. So you'll get the attention for your charity that you're looking for. And then, the very first hike, he said, I'd like to bring somebody along who might want to film it. Are you open to that? And I'm like, sure, whatever they want to film, we'll see what happens from it. Because that's the way I want it to be, just freelance. That person, Justin had never met, but he met her shortly after our first hike, and they're now married and have a little girl. So
what's it like being a matchmaker, man? Did you know that your hike was going to change lives that directly?
So they were the matchmakers, but the fun part is, everybody thinks that's my movie. No. That's the love story happening behind the scenes that both of them were trying to hide from each other and trying to deny it all the way through until the very final few hikes. Then it was starting to be clear that they were falling for each other pretty hard.
Randy, you can't see this right now, but Justin's face is bright red and it's awesome.
That's a great story. I was really afraid to let emotion take over and get attached to somebody and not have it work out and compromise the mission. So, and Dina felt the same way. So both of us were very, very careful about how we approached that situation while this was going down. And like Randy said, once we were getting real close to the end, it was pretty obvious that there was something going on, and we started to let our guard down a little bit. And it's an awesome story.
Actually, I have to correct them. It was pretty obvious right away. They were just trying to pretend to each other that it wasn't obvious.
I didn't want to compromise the mission.
Justin was being a good soldier.
If anything had happened, if we had made that connection clear and then anything had happened and that dissolved, who knows what would have happened to that hiking mission. And that was my main concern. Everything about that winter for me was tunnel vision and helping Randy achieve this goal. That was, once we made that decision that this is what we're going to try and do, that's all I did. I mean, I wasn't working. Nothing. I stopped doing everything and I focused on that goal. And it was awesome. It was just one heck of a winter.
You mentioned mission several times there. So if we can be a little bit more specific, what exactly did you consider to be your mission whenever you started to participate in this entire experience?
For me, the mission was to help Randy finish the goal. All 4,000 plus feet peaks in one winter. That was my mission, to help him complete his goal. And that's all I wanted to do. Tunnel vision. Bam.
And for me, the challenges to that were a couple of fold, right? So some of the longer, harder hikes, you have to be faster to get in and out. You're going to be starting before the sun rises. You're going to end before, after it sets. But you've got to still try to compress that window as much as possible, in part because the temperatures are going to get really crazy outside of those times, and in part because your risk factors are going to be higher. And when I hike with my guide dog, as much as I love that independence and freedom, I'm going to be slower because that's a nonverbal communication, and we're good and we can be efficient, but winter trails get narrow, or if you're breaking trail, it gets slow. So I needed to have human guides to pick up the pace in some sections at least. And we knew that. And not everybody can have the time to dedicate to getting out there like that. More human guides are better, or you have to get your strength built up, and you have the motto that you say, right? Keep strong to hike long. And you have to get strong to keep strong. And we had to develop those skills as a guide, because it's exhausting mentally to think about all the things you have to do as a guide. And, I'm a little bit taller than Justin. If he is looking down at our feet to worry about the trail that he's trying to get me to navigate, and he walks me into a branch, which happened a time or two.
Done it.
Right? There's a price to be paid. And, if you're 11 miles out on, which could be a lot more hours than it seems in tough terrain.
Mhm.
You don't want to have a bad gash and somebody, injured. And more importantly, what if Justin gets injured? Can I get him out of there? Right. So all those
Yeah.
things, we have to have that confidence that we can manage all that. That takes practice.
Well, let me ask you this. Somebody asked a really good question. Kind of goes along with where you're at right now. And they want to know, it's outdoor essentials. What's the scariest moment during that goal? What was the scariest moment? You
So
can
we
each answer. If you've got separate answers, you can each answer that.
Yeah, we probably each have separate answers for that. So for me, when Justin took a fall, right? You see the end of that video, and that was Mount Whiteface. It gets kind of steep, and Justin went sliding down on Mount Whiteface. And that point, I was worried because we weren't too far up. We'd have probably been able to work out. But that's when I realized, if he was hurt, what are we going to do? And we had met plans. We talked about it. And I was pretty confident, one, that he's tough, but two, that we both have the skills that if I need to leave him there, my dog is going to be able to guide me out and get us to where I can then reach somebody. But hopefully we don't need that. I might even be able to carry him for a little ways if we're not too deep. But when he took that fall, I was like, okay, this is when we're going to have to make all those plans come to life, right? Because I want to be a problem solver, not a risk taker. And that was the moment where I'm like, okay, you're on. Now let's see. And then he had to get up and say, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So the protocol, if Justin got hurt, was to trust your guide dog to just see you through to your final destination, or to backtrack to where you started?
Depends on the situation. Where are we in the hike?
Mhm.
What's his status? What's the weather conditions? What's the forecast? Right? All of those are factors. So each hike, each moment of the hike, there might be a different protocol.
Sure. Okay, Justin, what do you think that was the scariest moment while you all are achieving this goal?
The moment Randy mentioned kind of sticks out in my mind. It's not what I'm going to refer to, but that's when I realized that I need to wear traction gear more than I want to. I'm stubborn, and I do not like wearing traction gear. I'll bare boot it as long as I can, and that's what I was doing when that fall happened. I was bare booting and I slid. It's part of what happens. And realizing that in that blunt of a manner, that serious things can happen to not just me, but the people that I'm with, because I'm not wearing traction gear, is stupid. So that was a scary moment for me. But honestly, the most scary moment for me, I think, of the whole trip was right towards the end, where we got a real good string of bad weather, and that bad weather was compromising the possibility of our goal being completed. We had done most of what we needed to do, and then we had a couple hikes left that were up in the high peaks, above elevation, above the tree line, way up at elevation. And we had some bad weather rolling in for a good like 2 weeks. It was gnarly bad weather. And it was looking like it might be possible that because of that weather, we were not going to accomplish the goal. That scared me. And it's like a helpless, scared feeling. There's nothing you can do about it, because you're certainly not going to go up there in bad weather, because bad things happen. I think we all know that.
Yeah. Well, I know just the idea of doing those in the wintertime blows my mind. You know, I wouldn't have thought it would be easier on traction, but that makes total sense. But I'm thinking, man, that weather in New Hampshire. I've watched some of your videos, Justin. I know what it looks like,
It can
and
get crazy, man.
yeah, and to
real
do
crazy
all
quick
48. I mean,
in
how
one
much?
winter. That's the
Yeah.
impressive part. One winter.
So Randy, how much training did you do to get ready for that?
So not as much as I'd like. I'd done a lot of the summer hiking, so I was physically in good shape. My running started in part to get me in better shape for this sort of thing. That's really right. I was a hiker, and running fell out of that. But each of the hikes was designed. You start with the shorter hikes and you start moving to the longer hikes, so that the process was getting you ready for that. So that the end of it, right, really was the challenge. That's when we had the 24-mile day to do the Bonds Traverse, and the 16-mile day in the Prezzies, where you're up above tree line for 8 miles, hitting 27 degrees below zero with the wind chill for that whole run of it. And that was a pretty scary day, right?
That was a scary day. But
Well,
that was an extremely rewarding day as well.
Isn't that crazy how that works? Like, the days that are the scariest, when you get done with them,
They're
you
the
look
best.
back on those and they're the absolute best ones every time.
Provided it doesn't get too scary. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
was it more, share with us, was it more of like through hiking style, or how many times were you all splitting up after a hike or an overnight or multiple nights? Like, what did that look like during the whole time frame?
So typically we would do 3 days in a row, and it wasn't through hike because we weren't camping out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we always had a base that had some level of heat, which is, reset, dry your gear if you need to. But 3 days in a row was designed so that sometimes you'd have trails that were broken out as a result if you targeted around the weekend a little bit, and you have a little more likelihood of being some people out there. So it reduces some of those risks. So you tried to go, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe add Monday in there on a day that you're feeling strong. But I mean, 4 days of lots of elevation, lots of distance can wear you out.
So you all were trying to stick to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, possibly Monday, and you just had a certain number of weekends to do it in, and then you would go up, summit, and then come back to your base camp each night?
Correct. So
Okay.
Sometimes summiting, 2-3 peaks, because some of those peaks you run on the ridge line if you can.
Sure. Now, I am super, super curious, and I think a lot of other people are too, about your guide dog. Now, what was your guide dog's name again?
So the Mighty Quinn.
The Mighty Quinn. Okay, so I am a dog lover myself, and I have 2 dogs that soon we will be taking to obedience training. And I just want to know, I'm fascinated, how do you even, first of all, pick or discover or partner with a dog like Quinn? And then what are the steps that happen from, hey, I'm doing traditional training as a guide dog, something that could take me to a store or, wherever to go get XYZ, to now this dog is guiding me through the mountains. So where does it even start with finding, your partner?
Sure. That answer's long. So I recommend the book See You at the Summit, give you all those details, but I'm going to give you the quick version, which is that, like everything, you do it in stages. They train the dogs. There's 19 schools, or there were 19 schools in the country. I think there's a couple less than that provide guide dogs for people who are sight impaired. And that's part of what our charity does, is we support one of those schools so that they can give people the guide dogs they need. I'm just about to enter that process. I'm without a guide dog right now. So in the next few months, I will get matched with a new one. And they don't train them for mountains. They train them for the work that you have to do every day. Sidewalks, right? How do you handle life? And it's our job as a handler to understand the skills, and that's what they give you, how to help your dog, and you adapt it to whatever you may need that they think is within reason. So think about that within reason. Make sure that I work with the school and with the veterinarian staff, that I'm never going to put my dog in a situation that's unsafe or unhealthy for him. And that's really important, including those cold weather days, right? Those were all discussed in advance with a vet to make sure we were doing the right things. Then you start out on easier paths, and you see how he responds, and we build up our communication so he learns how he has to adjust his language. Because normally what he does is he steers me with a stiff harness. So I just follow where that harness goes. But he had to get much more detailed, because trails are intricate. At least our twisty, rocky, rooty trails here in New Hampshire are. And the angle of his body tells me how I have to adjust my body because there's a rock sticking out. And the subtle communication, that doesn't develop quickly. And it doesn't develop without a few banged knees along the way. Right? Or heads. And there's ways that I can adapt that to minimize that, and I do. And that's a part of the process. And I'm not the only one who does it. There's several people who are hiking with their guide dogs now, and there's some people doing some amazing stuff. Bill Irwin did the Appalachian Trail with a guide dog back in, I think 1990 is when he did that. And he wasn't even a hiker. Right? So he got on the trail and learned and relied on trail magic. But that's not the recommended way.
The angle of your dog's body, how do you tell that? Do you still have the stiff harness, or is you making physical contact, or how?
Yes. So the stiff harness goes to each side and hooks in on his shoulders. So when I'm holding that and he angles his body, it causes my hand to angle out. Okay. So when my hand angles out, I feel that, and I know, why did he do that angle? It's because there's something here, and I have a hiking stick, a trekking pole in my offhand, and I do a little wrist flip to tap what was that. And after we get good enough, I don't have to do that wrist flip, because I know what it was by how he moved and how much he moved. And guide dogs, by the way, they're looking down at the trail and up all the time. And I want to give some perspective because, we talked about how Justin had me hit my head once, and that's, pretty good. Most of my friends, I hit my head a lot more than Justin does. But my guide dogs, even less. And what's amazing about that is I'm 6'4", my guide dog's 2 feet tall, which means for most people, if you were doing that work, you'd be guiding somebody, 15 feet tall, 18 feet tall, right? And they're dodging my feet, which are I know you got big feet there yourself, but for me, they're the size of a table coming down at my guide dog, right? And they're doing all that while keeping me from banging my shins, my knees, my head, and wagging their tail the whole time, which is what I want to see.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this picture back. I threw a picture up while you were talking there for a second of the two of you and the mighty Quinn, so people could see us up on Mount Washington on the summit. And there's Quinn right there in the middle. That's just awesome. I'm going to also post this picture up here, too, of your book, See You at the Summit. If people are interested in looking that up, Justin sent me this picture today just so that people could see what the book looks like. Now, where can people buy that, Randy?
So on Amazon, it's in paperback, ebook, and audio book, right? Got to do that. I got to have my peers able to read it too, right?
There you go.
I love the audio books. So besides the harness, no special equipment for Quinn, even in the winter conditions?
So no, we did have special equipment. So we had 2 different types of boots that we carried. One which he could feel his paws through it, which is called paws. It was just to protect from sticking. Musher's wax if you needed it. A hard sole boot. He didn't like those, but if he ever needed them, they have like a Vibram sole. We had it. And the one thing we never needed, but always had in the pack, were doggles, which are doggy goggles. So if there was ever ice being blown around above tree line, we got to protect his eyes too, right?
Wow,
That's crazy.
That is insane. I love it.
And I just want to throw in that Quinn was much like Randy, like just an exceptional example of who and what they are. Like as a guide dog, Quinn, from what I've seen in my little experience with guide dogs and what, Quinn was exceptional. Like Randy, just exceptional, blind and doing all these crazy things that most of us people with sight aren't bothering to do. And he's just an exceptional person, and he was paired with an exceptional dog, and that made an exceptional team.
I mean, it's obvious you guys were quite the pair. Like, there's a lot of love there on both sides, it seems like.
For sure.
So that world needs, right? More kindness.
That's the truth, Randy.
Yep. And I got to see it firsthand. It was awesome. Randy would be going down the steep technical stuff, and that dog would just be sitting there watching every single little move, and you could see his muscles quivering, and you could almost see his brain working. It was like nothing but Randy was all that dog ever thought about in those situations, and it was just incredible.
That's awesome.
Incredible. I mean, to see a dog do math, like Randy said, this dog is 4 feet shorter than Randy, and the dog is telling Quinn is telling Randy, don't do that because you're going to smack your skull off of this tree branch. And what happened, Randy?
Man.
Yep. The way a guide dog works, it's something called intelligent disobedience. When we say go and they refuse, they're actually doing the right thing, because until we tap whatever the obstacle is, they're not supposed to go. They want us to know that it's there. And probably the most brilliant thing he ever did on one of the hikes was we were at a step down because there was a big tree root that was jammed up, and there's a lot of dirt, and it's a big step down. And he stops there, and I tap it with my foot and say, hop up. And he's still refusing, because there was not only a tree root, there was also a tree branch, right? So there's 2 obstacles. He sees them both. I tap one. He's like, that's not good enough. You got to show me where both are, right? And it's that kind of work that's just, it's hard for me to fathom.
Same.
Wow.
It's incredible.
That is incredible.
Michael Peterson said, amazing. Can't imagine that much trust, that much intelligence from a dog. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Some fun part about the intelligence and trust, when I switched from Quinn to a human guide, right, I started out with my hand on the backpack, and I would lightly just have it on the pack so I could feel all the directions and changes in a person's shoulders to know where to go. Well, Quinn would let that happen, but he wasn't sure about it. And if the person wasn't doing a good job guiding, he would come over and nudge my leg like, nope, I reject them, right?
Wow.
And if you get the boot from Quinn, that's a bad sign. But
that's great.
Justin, did you get the boot?
he never got it from it.
No,
Quinn loved him.
I was an accepted member of the team.
That's awesome. Hey,
Wow.
Randy, somebody made a comment on here. I think it's great. They said intelligent disobedience. I'm going to use that with my husband.
That's smart. So I've done some backpacking with David Gray, and of course he has his vision. He brings his dogs just for fun, and they run around and play, and they're not guiding him at all. But I was curious, Justin, whenever y'all set up these base camps, what kind of sleeping arrangements are y'all doing? Because David, he bought like a 3-person tent, and he brings an extra pad for his dog and that kind of thing.
We were strictly hotels, motels,
And the camper.
Camper. We'd go back to a camper a lot. Like Randy said earlier, heated places. We had heat, we had electricity, we had food. We never did the camping thing.
Okay.
And I'll let Randy explain, because I did at one point say, hey, man, let's do some camping. Let's crush some of these hills and do some camping. And Randy, it was very obvious to him. It never even crossed my mind. Like, think about camping in the wintertime with a blind dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of problems and logistics does that create? And okay, good point. That's something that I never even crossed my mind. That's one of the humbling things about Randy, is because he just rolls with it. A lot of times if you're spending your time with somebody that's impaired, you might be a little gun shy to say things or how to approach a situation or whatnot. And he always takes it in stride and just lets you know how it is and how it's going to be. And that's the way it is.
How did that change you, Justin? How, in all honesty, I mean, I'm sure for Randy, this was an amazing adventure because of what he got to do and meeting you, and obviously the relationship that happened in the marriage and all that kind of stuff. But for you, your outlook on people with handicaps, like blindness, how did that change your view of that?
It was an eye opener for sure. But the much more, he left a lot more impact on me and with people in general. I have a tendency to be black and white and say things that come across my mind, and people will think that I'm rude or cocky or arrogant, and maybe sometimes I am, but it's not the way I usually intend it. And I typically just roll with what comes into my mind, and his inspiration has taught me to slow down and think about things a little bit more and help me be a lot more tolerant with people. I've told Randy many times, and many other people, he's a serious inspiration to me. Like, he's one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. And this is why. And maybe you've heard me say that. I say it. But, and this is why, he's very he thinks about everything. And it gets, when you start spending a lot of time with people like that, or with someone like Randy, it gets you to thinking about things too, if you're paying attention. And he made me a lot more understanding and accepting of people in general, outside views, all this stuff. He's very good at presenting the other side of the story and making you think about that. And, often when I get red, like my shirt, and angry and mad, I sit down and seriously say to myself, what would Randy do? Or sometimes I'll be on Facebook in a complete rage about something or whatnot because of social media. You know how that works. And I spend 15 minutes typing out this message, burning this dude's world down. And then I think to myself, after I spent all the time orchestrating this awesome message that's going to burn someone down, and I think, what would Randy think if he saw this message that I send out to this guy? Delete. I just spent half an hour writing out a message, and I'll delete it because the thought occurs to me, what would Randy do? So his impact on my life has been just astronomical.
Well, I know
so many ways.
You and I first started chatting. It might have been late 2019. We met on Facebook or something. We started shooting messages back and forth, and within 10 minutes, you were talking about Randy. I mean, it was we didn't make it very far into the conversation before Randy came up, and then that was the rest of the conversation was, dude, we did this video, and we did these 48 summits, and the guy that I hiked with blew my mind. I mean, Randy, when he talks to you and he talks to you like he has severe reverence for you, he means every second of it, because
Absolutely,
when he talks to other people, you hear it there too. So I already knew before this interview was going to start that there was going to be a mad amount of respect going your way.
For sure.
Just not just for what you did with the 48 summits, but just the man that you are, because just there are very few people in this world that ooze positivity towards other people the way you
Radiate
do.
it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously I'm very appreciative of that. It's hard to take compliments sometimes, right? I appreciate the friendship and the approach, but I think when I lost my sight, it was really humbling in a couple of ways. And, at 22, I'm on top of the world. I was, a lot of things going for me. I just graduated from college, had a great job, very athletic, lots of things in my world. And maybe the difference between confidence and arrogance, maybe I crossed that line more than I should. But I got a dose of humble. And then I started, because of my lack of sight, having to use other people's vision a little bit to understand the world around me. And I had to start understanding other people's perspectives, literally and figuratively. And there's a lot of power to that. When you start realizing that, other people have reasons for why they think and why they see things. Just what people notice tells you some things. Because different people notice all sorts of different things. That's the gift of when you hike with different people, is I'm learning from each one of them what they're seeing, and each is a different gift for me. But that's what people are. We're different. And so what I try to do, in Justin's situation that he shares, is just, what do I want for the results for me and for the people around me? And reactions get in the way of that, because reactions are emotional. And I love my emotions, because that's how we have awe. That's how we have wonder. But how do I change my reactions from being negative? And that's just give them some time. I say it's the ABC method, right? Awareness that I'm having an emotional surge in my response. B, so A is awareness. B is breathe, because it slows me down and physiologically it calms me down. Takes me time to do it. And C, consider, what do I want to do? What do I want for a result? And that takes it from an emotional reaction to a thoughtful response. And that's how we just get to interact better, think better for ourselves and for the people around us.
Wow. Yeah, that's next level,
Serious,
man.
that's what I'm talking about, guys. I mean, he's got every reason in the world to probably be angry and bitter, and he just radiates positivity. It's incredibly inspiring.
But I mean, I have bad days too, though, right? Like, I was ready to quit on one of our hikes, right? Justin doesn't tell the story that he had to talk me off of quitting, right? And it was, so the person who I started hiking with, we had a falling out. It was a tough part, right? And he's on this hike, and it's pretty clear that things are over. We're kind of forcing it, and he's up ahead, and it's just a tough slog of a hike. The drop off is to our right, and my guide dog is always to the left. So that's the hardest situation, because how close am I to the drop off? It's 19-mile brook trail. It's just a long stretch, and those guys are being held back, and there's a storm coming in. So if we don't do it quick, we're not going to make it. And I'm not actually responding as well as I should, because there's a little anger going on between me and that other guy. And so there's a little silence, right? And communication never works with silence or violence. You got to have calm, candid conversation. And at a certain point, I was just like, you know what? I see I'm holding you up. And I was too maybe proud, stubborn, caught up in my emotions to say, hey, if we want to do this, I'm going to need a guide. That's the only way we're going to make up the time. And I certainly wasn't going to ask the guy I was mad at. And Justin hadn't done as much guiding yet. So I said, you go on. And if I miss this peak, well, I'll just have to deal with that. And Justin came back and he's like, no, you don't get to quit here. I'm going to guide you. We're going to get this together. And, that's been the story of our life. So just understand, I'm not always the positive guy. I need to get picked up sometimes too. And I think that's an important lesson for all of us to realize.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious. Justin mentioned a few minutes ago that sometimes people are, they know that you lost your vision, and they maybe think that certain conversations or certain questions are taboo. Do you ever feel like that you have like a sixth sense that somebody is feeling that way? And are there things that you think there's just an ambiance about you that eases that, or do you use any tactics to make people feel more comfortable?
So all of those answers, right? And I don't know whether it's sixth sense. I think people have cues that are tells. You hear when somebody's awkward, and people are often uncomfortable when they encounter something they're not familiar with. You can hear that. And unfortunately, the way people mostly respond to that is by being silent, because then they go to observe as they try to figure a way. And usually that's a visual reaction for most people. But what I do is I know in advance that's likely. So when I encounter somebody that shows even the sign of that, I'll guess that may be the case, and I'll use my tactics right up front, which is candor. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm really comfortable with my blindness. So if there's something you want to know that'll help, let's just talk about it because it'll make it easier. I'm really pretty comfortable. If you manage to stray to something that's not comfortable for me, I'll find a comfortable way to tell you that.
I remember one time during that winter, I had never really had experience with blind people, so I just took what I guess everyone probably generalizes, right? And I'd known Randy for a little while at this point and started getting much more comfortable with him. And just we were on a hike, and I said, "Hey, Randy, if you want to touch my face to see what I look like, go for it. You know, I'll allow you to do that." And I'm not a touchy feely, but I don't like it when people touch me, right? So anyway, Randy, he told me that was basically not real. I mean, maybe it is for other people, but for him it wasn't. And if Randy wants to take over the story from here, please do.
Well, yeah.
I remember that situation, and that kind of ties into what Jeremiah is talking about. That could be a really uncomfortable situation.
Absolutely. And right, what I need to do is say, hey, you know, I really appreciate that offer. It's not something that works for me. But the truth of the matter is, when I first went blind, I had all those stereotypes too, because I didn't know what a blind guy was supposed to do. And I remember I went to the library because they have like the statues of the presidents. And I said, I want to go feel those statues of the president to see, because I don't know if I could do this. And I think I'm supposed to. And I felt them and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This doesn't work at all. And, you know, some people aren't as polite as Justin was and don't offer. They literally just take my hand and put it on their face and say, feel. And I'm like, no, you know, there's a better way to do this.
I'm just loving the inner monologue that you had to be having with yourself. Okay, so now I'm blind. I got to do what blind people do. And blind people touch faces. So I need to start touching faces. Like, I can't imagine I don't even think like that. I don't think in terms of like, okay, now I'm blind. What do I do? Like, of course you're going to think that, but I would never personally be like, I bet when he first went blind, the first thing he thought was, I got to learn Braille and I got to see people's faces by touching their faces. You know, I wouldn't think of that
story.
So this, you know, I use this story in schools all the time. It's problem solving, right? It's how you change the mindset. But one of the first problems when I first lost my vision totally, I was out at guide school. I was in Oregon training for my first guide dog. And, you know, I go to bed that first night having lost all my vision. And there comes a point where you have to do something you've done with sight all your life. And for me was brush my teeth. And how much toothpaste is coming out? And is it going on your toothbrush? That's something you take for granted. And now even with bad vision, I'd still used to look. And now I'm like, okay, so I line up my fingers on each side and I like squeeze just carefully. And let's just say a lot more toothpaste than I thought came out, and it went a lot more places than my toothbrush. And, you know, I cleaned up and changed my shirt, and I was frustrated, right? And frustration leads to failure, right? So the key is you got to convert it to curiosity. How can I do this differently? What can I do? And I'm out at guide school with a bunch of people who have sight impairment. Let me go ask one. How do you brush your teeth? And they're like, oh, it's easy. It's my toothpaste. I hold it to my lips and I squeeze it into my mouth because I can feel. And as soon as I feel enough is in my mouth to stop squeezing, put the cap on, wet my toothbrush, brush my teeth, I never spill. And you know what? I joke with the kids. I'm like, you know, so 21 years later, that's the solution I still use. And my bathroom sink is probably cleaner than most of yours, right?
Yeah.
Because it's an easy solution. And the key on problem solving there is something about your podcast, right? Is that the way you solve a problem, the first step you should take is find out if it's already been solved. Because if somebody knows how to do it, that's a great place to start. And yeah, I'm all for pioneering new solutions when you need them. But why not start there? Go out and see how people are doing it.
I love it, man. Are there any other like silly generalizations that you wish that you would be like, okay, just stop. Just stop. Anything else come to mind? I'm just curious.
Oh, there are. So everybody believes I have superhuman hearing, and
superhuman hearing.
It's right. We're all Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
And
so you can see the rain, and all that's what they think.
And you know, there are some things that we do because we're not distracted by sight. So I pay attention a lot more. Like if I asked you whether your house is made more noise in the middle of the night when it's dark, or in the middle of the day, you'd probably say, no, you hear those noises at night more. But it's not because it makes more noise. It's because without your sight, you're using your ears more, right? And I'm doing that all the time. So I hear all those little noises. But it's not like I can pick out, it's not like I can hear the sounds in the other room any more clear. I still can't hear anything my wife says when it involves a chore, right? So there are a lot of those, but I think there's one habit that people have, and it's really a simple one. It's kind of universal for anybody, which is that people often want to help, which I love, but their method of helping is they think they know what you need, and so they just try to do it. And sometimes that means, if I reach for something, they grab my hand and pull it towards it. And that's just awkward in life, right? When somebody suddenly grabs your hand and tries to pull you. And I'm a big guy, so when I don't want them to pull me, I don't let them. But I still don't like that. Or, I'm reaching for something, somebody pick it up and hand it to me, which of course means I'm still searching around and they're holding it up to me, which I can't see. Or somebody will open a door, which is a great thought, except they didn't tell me, so I now walk into it, right? All those things, the right answer for anybody, sighted or not, is communicate.
Yeah.
Can I do something for you? I think we'd save a lot of frustrations for people if we asked people we did something for them.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I'm glad that you entertained my question there. I see in the comments people are putting some different stuffs, like different things like this entire discussion is a breath of fresh air, very inspiring.
Craig.
And
Yep.
Randy, I love your attitude, and you guys are just truly awesome. That's great. I am curious about the hikes though, or I would like to hear from both of you. And Justin, you can go first. I want you to think about some of the mistakes that were made, some of the logistical errors, anything in general that you all would change, or it could be very specific. If you were to say, okay, next winter it's coming back around and we're going to do it faster or better or whatever.
10-year anniversary. Let's do it.
Yeah. There you go. You could do it. You could do it next year.
Oh, Justin's rubbing those hands together. He's all ready. Let's do this.
Yes.
Justin, what would you change about the whole thing to either make it easier or more fun or better or whatever?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to say that I hate to disappoint you, but that's an impossible question to answer because the logistics of doing that and weather-based and all that stuff, like you can try and prepare and like get in better shape. I'm gonna run 50 miles a week every week until winter, and I'm going to go and I'm going to crush those mountains in the winter. And then the weather sucks for 2 months. And there's nothing you can do about
Nothing you can do.
That's not going to make it more fun. I'm probably actually going to be a lot more angry about it at that point. So I apologize, but I really don't know how to answer that question.
That's okay, man.
That's really fair, man.
don't.
You know better than we do.
Good people, do it with good people if you can. Obviously, I met him on the trip, so you don't have to know exactly what you're getting into, but I really don't know how to answer that question, man. I'm sorry.
There's an old Chinese proverb that a man cannot cross the same river twice because neither he nor the river are the same. And the reality is that I would take some things that we learned. I think we're better at the equipment from our early hikes. By the time we finished, we had streamlined things. But
Sure.
There's a key in what he said. It wouldn't be about doing it faster. It wouldn't be, right? That may fall out. But what I would do is I would just say, presuming our lives allowed, and our lives are very different than they were then, but hey, let's take the good weather and let's make them work. And that's sort of what we did then, but we pushed through sometimes when it wasn't as good. We missed some opportunities, and I would just capitalize on those with the skills we had to make sure we savor those hikes again, but in a different way. And maybe we'd throw in a few different experiences, because new experiences are what make things rich. Maybe we would take stay out on a summit somewhere in a winter camping environment because Justin's got plenty of experience there. Maybe we can put that time, because the goal has been done. So no artificial pressure. Can we squeeze it in this? If it happens, great. But let's get the experiences in there, because new experiences, right? Just always be open to those. That's what makes things good.
And that's what made that winter good, because going into that winter, I had no idea that I was going to meet Randy, let alone embark on this adventure with him. The opportunity just kind of presented itself, and that made it that much more exciting. And it's kind of a funny story because when I finally committed to this, it sounds funny, but Randy and I were in the shower. So
That's so funny.
we had gone hiking. We did our hike. We were back to the campground that night, and the campground had shower facilities, coin-operated shower facilities. So when you winter hike in the winter, one of the best feelings in the world is taking that hot shower afterwards. It's a godsend. His stall was right next to mine, and we just were talking and showering, and I was at that very moment overwhelmed with, and just it all came rushing in, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm on for this. Like, I am going to do everything in my power to help him make this happen. And it was at that exact moment, and it was not planned. It just happened, and that's what made it so incredibly exciting. It just happened.
That's awesome.
I get goosebumps talking about it, because it's one of those things. It's like just like divine intervention, or whatever you want to call it. It's just one of those things that in my life was supposed to happen, and it did, and it just happened, and it was an amazing thing. It was an amazing thing. Some of the best things in your life happen, and you don't know they're happening when they're happening, and that's the beauty of it.
That's awesome.
You get to look back and see it all in a different perspective.
Well, we're just about to hit an hour, so I want to ask. I know it's crazy; it goes so fast, it just flies. Everybody says that, but what I want to do is I want each of you to answer one more question for me, if that's okay with you, Jeremiah. I got one more question I want to ask. People who are watching, when this is over, we do the goodbye, we play the outro music, and the stream goes off. What do you want people to remember about what they heard tonight from you guys? So, Randy, you're the more polished speaker, so I'll let you go first. And Justin's very thankful I just did that. But but Randy, what would you want people to get from what we've talked about tonight?
You know, I love my life. I've had so many amazing experiences. We didn't even hit half of the, high moments, which we could have gone into, but I love my life. And people say all the time, you're so lucky. And I do feel lucky, but it's not just luck. It's the fact that, right, I make the choice to take a plan, right, to take a wish, a dream, whatever it is, to make it a plan, and then to take action and do it. And that's what I want people to do, whether it's hiking, climbing your mountain, whatever is important to people, right? You can do it, and you should do it, because your life is richer when you do the things that are meaningful to you. Don't say for another day, say, I'm going to do it this day. Set a plan and go do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Justin, how about you, man?
I'm going to say, do what you're passionate about, do what you like to do, and let it happen. Just do your thing and let it happen, because that winter changed my life, like straight up. Like everything about my life changed that winter, and it just happened. So just go out and do your thing and do what you want to do and let it happen. That's what I want everyone to take away from this. Randy has become one of my best friends. I met my future wife. We have a child, like all of that stuff. We have a ton of land, like we're homesteaders. We're doing life is good. And that all happened just because it happened. So just do it and let it happen. That's what I have to say. That's what I want people to take away. Your life can change just like that. Mine did.
That's incredible, man. Well, I appreciate both of you guys being on here, and we're gonna have to do this again. So if you guys are cool with that, I'm sure Jeremiah's not gonna argue with me on this. There's a lot more we could have talked about tonight, and I want to make sure we do that at some point. So
yeah, I'd love to hear some of your all's wild and crazy moments and stories and the highs and lows and all that. I think that'd be a very entertaining podcast for everybody, but I'd also like to hear it for myself.
Yeah. And Randy, will you share with us how people can find you online? Let people know about your book. Talk a little bit about the video. Just give people information how they can find you and look up what you're into.
That's kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, we have a website that'll get to all of our social media options as well, and it's 2020visionquest.org. That's the numbers 2020visionquest.org.
Awesome.
And he's got a YouTube channel.
Oh, really?
It's true.
Very cool. And the book is called "See You at the Summit." That's
See You at the
by
Summit.
Randy and his wife Tracy. So they can find that. You said they can find that on Amazon.
Correct. Yep, and it's linked to on our website, right? So you go there, you'll have links to all of those. And that 4 More Feet video is on Amazon Prime. You can rent or buy on Amazon Prime.
Awesome. Awesome. And it is good. Like I haven't gotten to watch all of it yet. There was a watch party that Justin got me hooked in on, and I got to watch like half of it. I didn't get it there quick enough, and I missed the first half of it, but it's so good. It's just so inspirational. And so thank you so much. Justin, why don't you let people know how they can find you too?
It's Good in the Woods, YouTube.
There it is. Simple.
Yeah.
Simple. It's Good in the Woods.
Thank
And
you
to this day,
everybody for watching.
you have the coolest thumbnail ever still to this day.
Thank you.
Like
Thank you.
there's this video where it's Justin, and he's literally trying to get out of a tent that is covered in snow.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's an awesome thumbnail.
That one did well for me.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Well, guys, thanks so much for being on the show tonight. And
Thanks for having us.
stay in the green room. We'll talk to you for a few minutes after we're done here. So just kind of hang out for a little bit if you don't mind.
You
Thanks
bet.
for watching, everybody.
Dude, how does this happen? How do we get to talk to people like this all the time?
I'm very blessed, man. We're so
Man,
blessed, and
you
I'm
are.
glad that we get to share it with everybody. I'm so thankful for the audience because it really enables us to get to talk to these people. So it's like a two-way street, right? If nobody's listening, then I mean, these people are like, oh, I'm just talking to these two random guys. But the audience gives us a platform to get to share not only what we think, but also all of these great stories and guests and inspiration with everybody.
And what's great is we give them a platform to talk about what they're passionate about. We've already looked at this right here. Tom Sipernowski just already ordered the book. So that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So, man, it's just great. Now, let's talk a little bit about next week and who's going to be on the show. We've got a very popular thru hiker who just finished up the Arizona Trail who's going to be on the show next week.
Yeah, Julia
Julia Sheehan.
Yeah, I always mispronounce her last name, so I'll let you say it. But yeah, we've been talking back and forth with Julia, and I'm excited to talk to her. She's got a YouTube channel, and like you said, very popular thru hiker and makes great stuff.
Also former military. A lot of people don't know that about her. Former military. She's a tough lady, and we are super excited to have her on the show next week. And we're starting to work on some other stuff coming up in the future. Thank you guys so much for being tuned in tonight. This has been a really special episode, I think, of the live stream.
Yeah, super inspirational, and like this episode was grown, dude. This is like, this isn't a kid. This is like a grown episode.
Yes, it is. And what an awesome episode it's been. So big thank you to Justin and to Randy for letting us into their world, because I mean, they've experienced some amazing things together, and it's just cool that we got to share that with them tonight. That's really cool. So with that said, Jeremiah, I think it's time to get out of here.
Yep, let's call it a night. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Y'all have a good night. We'll catch you in the next one.
Adios.